Welcome to the SIM-PAC Live channel. I'm your host, Geoff Matthews. Today I'm actually speaking with my strategic brand consultant hat on, and I want to talk about why standing still is not an option during this AI disruption to professional services. If you've ever watched one of those time-lapse charts showing the world's largest company over 100 years, you'll know the pattern. Names rise, dominate, quietly slide off the screen, replaced by companies that didn't even exist a decade earlier. What those charts don't show you is that the moment of crisis that triggered each changing of the guard. Sometimes it's a single catastrophic event, but more often it's a period of disruption where some leaders froze and new ones stepped forward. And we're in one of those moments right now. The professional services across the entire spectrum are right in the centre of it. As a strategic brand consultant, I occupy a somewhat unusual vantage point. I consult to other consultancies. I work across legal firms, accounting practices, management consultancies, ESG and sustainability advisors, and marketing agencies. This gives me a panoramic view of what's happening across the entire professional services landscape. And I can tell you, the same pattern is playing out simultaneously in every one of these industries. The disruption is AI. The response is far too often is paralysis, or possibly worse, pessimism. We all know the fight or flight response. It's hardwired into us. But there's a third response that doesn't get enough attention. It's freeze. It's part of our reptilian brain, the instinct to stay perfectly still when a threat appears, hoping it passes. In nature, freezing sometimes works. If a predator hasn't spotted you, staying motionless might save your life. But in business disruption, the threat isn't scanning the horizon. It's already moving through the landscape, reshaping everything around you. Standing still doesn't make you invisible, it makes you irrelevant. Every day a firm stands frozen, waiting for certainty, waiting for someone else to go first, waiting to see how it all plays out. Brand equity is quietly walking out the door. Clients are recalibrating, competitors are moving, and new entrants are emerging free of the baggage of legacy models or legacy thinking. Jeff Bezos articulated this better than anyone else in his 2016 shareholder letter. His argument was that most decisions should be made with about 70% of the information you wish you had. Wait for 90% and you're being too slow. His key insight, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is going to be expensive for sure. The firms that chose to fight, even if they charge in the wrong direction at first, can always course correct. The firms that choose flight, retreating, downsizing, clinging to what they know, may survive at best. But the firms that freeze, they're the ones that wake up in 3 years wondering where their clients and half their partners went. When you're pessimistic, you stop investing in the future. You might go through the motions. You might do the bare minimum that's required, but you don't invest in people. You don't invest your emotional commitment, and you certainly don't invest in your brand. Here's the thing about pessimism. People can smell it. Clients can sense it when they walk through the door. Your best people can feel it in the culture. In a world where clients are choosing professional service firms based on shared values, cultural alignment and trust, pessimism reeks. Who wants to go to a firm for strategic advice if the firm itself doesn't believe in her own future? The accounting profession learned this lesson a long time ago. The traditional accountant told you why you couldn't do something. That was a service. Here are all the reasons this won't work. And it was precisely that pessimistic posture that drove the big shake-up when progressive firms repositioned as strategic advisors. They stopped saying no and started saying how. Incidentally, I owe some of my biggest client success stories to their accountants who told them not to do something, so they came to me. The parallel to today is unmistakable. If your firm's default response to AI is to focus on what will be lost rather than what can be gained, you're sending a signal to every client and every talented professional in your orbit, we don't believe in what comes next. That's not a strategy, that's surrender. Here's the uncomfortable truth at the heart of this disruption. The billable hour model that has underpinned law, accounting, marketing, and pretty much the rest of consulting for decades is fundamentally incompatible with AI-driven efficiency. The mathematics are brutal. If a legal brief that took 25 hours to produce now takes 10 hours with AI assistance, the lawyer would need to more than double his hourly rate to generate the same revenue. Clients are not going to accept that for long. Even though they may derive the same value from the work, because historically we chose to link value to hours spent, time is money, we built the model and now we need to own it. I moved away from billable hours over 2 decades ago, and because of that experience in the mid-2010s, I got to rebrand several accounting firms that were transitioning from billable hours to value-based charging. It was a struggle. Everyone grappled with it at the start. Some did better than others. What strikes me now is that the legal profession in particular has clung on to the billable hour right through to today. The reckoning that accounting and a lot of consulting faced years ago is only now arriving for law, and it's arriving with the force of a technological revolution behind it. The data tells the story. Profits per lawyer at Americans' top 100 firms have climbed nearly 54% since 2019, yet billable hours per lawyer are declining. Firms are earning more, not because lawyers are working more, but because the pricing power has temporarily outpaced client scrutiny. That imbalance never lasts. McKinsey now has roughly 12,000 AI agents working alongside 40,000 humans. Their internal tools handle nearly 500,000 queries a month and save consultants 30% of their time on research alone. Yet only about a quarter of the firm's fees are linked to outcomes. The rest still comes from traditional billing. The incentive misalignment is staggering. Technology enables efficiency, while the revenue model depends on inefficiency. Something has to give. In times like these, it's not just brand positions that shift. Firms fracture. I've seen this firsthand. Around 2010, 2012, I worked with a large New Zealand provincial accounting firm, where part of the partnership wanted to move to value-based charging and part wanted to stay with billable hours. The tension was irreconcilable. Our research showed that the firm's clients were also split on whether the work the accounting firm performed for them was a cost to their business or it helped make them money for their business. Inevitably, the accounting firm split. The progressive side, the advisors, emerged as a leader in its field, dynamic and forward-looking. The legacy side, the accountants, was eventually absorbed, taken over by a larger Australasian group operating a standardised accounting systems model. This is the pattern. When leadership can't agree on a direction, the firm doesn't end up standing still, it ends up breaking apart. Those who want to hold on to the past form one camp, those who want to move form another. In my experience, it's almost always the movers who emerge stronger. This should be a warning to every managing partner in every professional services firm right now. Under your leadership, if you don't choose a direction, the decision may in the end not be yours to make, and it may not be tidy. But times of crisis are also times of extraordinary opportunity. For ambitious professionals who feel constrained by their firm's inertia, this is the moment where new brands are born. Some of the most exciting firms in the market over the next 5 years will be ones that don't exist yet today, founded by people who have decided that standing still was no longer an option. There is another consequence of AI disruption that I think deserves far more attention. It risks breaking the pipeline that creates the next generation of professionals entirely. The traditional model in every professional service was essentially an apprenticeship. You learned by doing. Junior lawyers drafted briefs, junior accountants crunched numbers, junior consultants built slide decks and research reports. It was unglamorous and sometimes tedious work. But through that repetition, you developed the instinct and judgment that eventually made you a trusted advisor. AI is now doing that work. McKinsey says its tools can perform roughly 80% of a junior analyst's typical research and slide generation tasks in seconds. AI can draft contracts, analyse data, produce first-class past strategy documents. The question nobody is properly answering is, if the juniors aren't doing that foundational work anymore, how do they develop and how do they get expertise and experience? I see this as a critical human decision that firm leaders need to make right now. The answer isn't stopping hiring juniors. It's to radically think both who you hire and how they learn. I know one senior partner in a professional services firm who has always looked beyond GPAs when recruiting. In interviews, he'd ask candidates what they did in their weekends. He wasn't making small talk. He was looking for people who were active in sport, involved in clubs, engaged in their communities, people who were out in the world interacting with other human beings. What he was really testing for was common sense, the kind that's developed through humour, interaction, and the full spectrum of human experience. He believes that people with that rounded edge look at the world more objectively, and critically, they will be the ones able to look at what AI produces and instinctively know when something isn't right. In an AI-enabled world, it may not be the brightest students with the highest GPAs who get hired. It'll be the best communicators, the best listeners, the people. Technical literacy will take a backseat to human literacy. The ability to connect, to emphasize, to build trust, to navigate the messy, emotional, deeply human side of professional services that no algorithm can touch. Those meetings where only senior partners would attend, and it took years before an associate got a seat at the table, that needs to be flipped on its head. The learning now happens in the room, client meetings and mediations, in the human interactions that AI cannot replicate. Juniors need to be brought into those conversations much earlier in their careers, because that's where they'll develop the skills that actually matter. Reading a room, building rapport, exercising judgment under pressure. Early career professionals also bring fresh, often unfiltered perspectives that can challenge and improve how we operate. The smartest firms will treat their juniors not just as future leaders, but as a vital source of insight right now. If we break this pipeline, we break succession. We break these businesses. The firms whose leaders actively pull juniors into the room aren't just being generous, they're making the most important strategic investment available to them, developing people who will lead the firm in 10 years' time. I was speaking recently with somebody in the legal profession who made an observation that crystallizes much of this. They said that senior lawyers will be increasingly doing less litigation and more mediation. Mediation is fundamentally a people skill, reading emotion, navigating conflict, finding resolution. It's the bit that AI won't easily replicate. And it's also the highest value work that professionals bring to the table. This is true across every professional service. AI cannot sit across the table from a human being and make them feel understood. It cannot read the room or know when to push and when to hold back. It cannot build the trust that turns a one-off engagement into a decades-long client relationship. AI also regularly produces conflicting advice. And for clients, conflicting advice can sometimes be worse than no advice at all. What clients need is in an AI-driven world is interpretation, clarity, trust. That's what a great professional delivers, and that's what a great brand promises. And this is where it gets interesting. AI will level the technical playing field. Before long, every firm will have essentially the same technical capabilities. When that happens, the differentiator isn't the technology, it's the brand and all that it encapsulates. As was stated at a major professional services AI briefing in Auckland this past week or so, the future is all about the brand. They talked about the authenticity premium, the verified human experience, and that trusted brands with provenance will gain value. Every good branding consultant was saying exactly the same thing 25 years ago, by the way. In the world of sameness, difference rules, as Thomas Gadd put it back in 2000. Brands elicit trust. That's why we gravitate towards them. It's the reason a client will choose one firm over another when the technical offerings are indistinguishable. The firms that invest in building authentic, trusted brands, powered by great people, delivering on great promises, they will be the ones that win. I've spent my career watching what happens to brands during periods of disruption. I've written about it in other industries, including energy and aluminium smelting. The pattern was identical. An entire industry treating change as if it was somebody else's problem, clinging to legacy models until the clock ran out. The professional services are now having their moment. The deck is being reshuffled. It happened during the digital transformation of the 2010s. It happened during COVID. It's happening now. But here's what I've learned that goes beyond brand strategy and business models. In moments like these, people don't just need direction, they need optimism, they need hope. At the start of the Australian COVID lockdown, a friend rang me. He'd spent 20 years building an events business, triathlons, marathons, mass participation sport. Overnight, every event was cancelled. There was no revenue, no timeline for reopening, and no hope in sight. His business, as he saw it, was finished. I gave him a complete rev up and told him that it was in moments exactly like this that we needed leaders like him to step forward and give people something to look forward to. And so that's what he did. He put all their future events back online, offered 100% money back COVID guarantee, opened entries, and got really busy on social media. Within days, they had 1,000 entries for their next event. 1,000 people locked down at home chose to enter an event they couldn't yet attend. Why? Because putting in that entry gave them optimism. It gave them hope, a reason to train, a reason to stay motivated, a reason to look forward to the future. One leader stepped forward and 1,000 people followed because someone gave them a reason to start running. His business emerged from COVID stronger, 30% larger with more engaged staff and a brand community. And that's what happens when you choose to lead through a crisis rather than become a victim of it. As one CEO who lived through the on-prem to cloud disruption said to me, none of their previous experience was wasted. It became the foundation. The difference was in how the people chose to look at the opportunity. That shift in perspective is where real value emerged. I see that same vacuum right now in professional services. People across the industries, and those still studying as well, are uncertain, anxious, and genuinely unsure of what AI means for their careers and their firms. There's a lot of confusion and quite a bit of denial. But when I turn to look at our leaders, too many are frozen or pessimistic, and neither ends well. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? A nation turns its lonely eyes to you. That line from Mrs. Robinson was written by Paul Simon in the 1960s as a nostalgic call for authentic, trusted figures in a time that felt unstable. These are unstable times. The firms that will emerge as the leaders of the next era are the ones that move now, even if imperfectly. They'll transition to new billing models that serve them and their clients. They'll redesign how they develop talent. They'll invest in human literacy over technical literacy. They'll build their brands with optimism and purpose. They'll choose fight over freeze. And most importantly, they will give their people and their clients something that AI cannot generate: hope, confidence, and a reason to believe in what comes next. Standing still is not an option. The landscape is moving too fast. Don't let your brand equity quietly slip out the door. Good luck. We live in exciting times.